There we go. We're up, I think. Can you hear me? Hey, gang. Brett Higgins, set your phasers to brain melt. Light this candle. Jeez, gang. It feels like such a buildup with all that cool music. What do you think? Should we let that ride every time? Should we go for the full 3 minutes and just let it play itself out? Or is that too long? I've had a few people say it was too long, but I've had more people say they really like it. So I should let it play. Audio's good. Hey, Sage Sleuth, Prickly G, Chameleon UK, Brett Higgins, Shardul, Chris Hovard, who's sporting the brand new Night Shift starter pack. Welcome aboard, everybody. AG is here. Terrence is here. Shadow Patriot Terry. All right. We're up to 35 viewers. This is great. Let Pat Prickly G says, let music go 3 minutes to allow people to show up. I like that idea. I think you should have a little music to kind of arrive to. Don't you think? Sherry says it's too long. Somebody said I had too much dead air the other day. I don't know who that was, but somebody was in a comment. They were like, "You have too much dead air." I need to work on that. It's a flow thing. We got to work on the flow. We have to achieve proper flow. It just takes time. Long guitar solo equals good. See, AG likes it. Chris Howard says, "Play it all." Of course, our awesome new theme music by Xander Jones, musician, UFO researcher, cultural icon, Xander Jones. And just quick shout out to the Night Shift team, Chris, Brett, Prickly G. You're part of the Night Shift team. Xander, part of the Night Shift team. We're expanding the team. The team has been expanded. I guess it's time for a little channel update. We're working on the team. The team is growing. Over the last few weeks, I've had a number of people reach out and offer to help grow the Night Shift global media empire into the unstoppable juggernaut that it is destined to become in just a few short months. And I understand why. I get it, because we've got the most underrated, undervalued UFO UAP YouTube channel ever. And if you're in on the ground floor, this thing it just goes up from here. Line goes up. So stick with me. I've had a number of people reach out and just wanted to be involved in some way or another. And so over the last 2 weeks or so, we've been just doing kind of calls and video meetings talking about the channel and sort of the vision for the channel and where I could use extra hands. And it's been great. So we've put together the Discord, and that has been Brett and Chris mainly working on the Discord, which I believe we're going to go ahead and shout out today. So I might as well go ahead and do that. Brett, should I shout out the Discord yet? Are we going to do the invite thing? You want me to go ahead and let people know? Let me let me know in the chat. Give me a shout in the chat, and I'll do it. The Discord is ready to go. I think we're going to start inviting people in a limited way to come on board, and we're going to open up an entirely new realm, a whole new chapter. Okay, Brett's ready. So if you want to get involved with the Night Shift Discord, the way to do that is to go to, oh geez, what is the email address we just created for this? What's the email they're supposed to reach out to, Brett? I think it's, I just did this yesterday. I'm such a scatterbrain. My son woke up early this morning. He had a nightmare, and he woke everybody up, and he was just flipping out, and it was like all hands on deck. 20 minutes later, we were watching Bluey, and everything was fine, but it was crazy. So it just threw the whole morning into a tailspin. Everything's just been. I always like cartwheel into these live streams, sort of like lopsided and on fire, and hopefully we're going to fix that. I'll tell you about that update in just a second. Was it info at teamnightshift.com? What was the email address, Brett? We just did this. Info at teamnightshift.com. That's the email address. You can send an email. This is what you do. All right. If you want to participate in the Discord, Team Night Shift Discord, limited slots are available for invitation only people. You have to send an email to info at teamnightshift.com. That that email is going to go to Brett, and then Brett is going to take care of arranging who gets the invitation links to come on board in phase 1. And phase 1 is just a limited test. We're going to bring on a certain number of people. We're going to kind of let them try it out, see how it goes. Provided there are no hiccups, no screw ups, no weirdness, and everything runs smoothly, then we'll open it up to everybody in, I don't know, another week, 2 weeks, something like that. Not long. So info at teamnightshift.com. You can go, if you look at the chat, you'll see Chris and Brett are posting it in there. Just send a quick email. Let them know you'd like to be involved in the Discord. You want to get an invite, and they'll get you squared away. So that's been really good. And we're going to be shifting up the schedule a little bit. I was doing 3 a week. We're going to go down to 2. I'm going to do a members only Monday update, which I did not do this Monday because I had a conflict. And we're going to do probably Fridays. I think Fridays is going to be the thing. Starting next week, there won't be a Wednesday live. This is the last Wednesday live we're going to do for a while. We're going to do Friday, and then starting next week, it'll be members only Monday, and then a Friday live. So I can pick up that extra day in the middle of the week to do all the maintenance stuff that we need to do. So that's good. What else? We will need you. They're going to need you. Oh, by the way, if you email info at teamnightshift.com for the Discord thing, make sure you include your YouTube and member status if you're a member. Just put that in there. Put your YouTube handle. Look at the chat. These guys have it all figured out. So when we come back and we start doing more, the Friday lives, we're going to double down on the Friday live stream and make it much more special, much more interesting. It's going to have a better flow to it. It's going to have more research put into it, more prep time put into it. I'm going to have some help with that. Xander's going to be helping me out with some of the live streams going forward. And we're going to try it and see how it goes. So stick with me. I know it's been a little clunky. If you guys have been watching the last, 2 months, what you have been seeing is the gradual evolution of this channel as I figure out which content works, what content is realistic, what I can produce in the time that I have available during the week, and how all that stuff's going to come together. So now that I've done that little experiment, I've learned a lot. We're applying the lessons we've learned, and we're going to be growing it in a more organized way going forward. So that's the latest. Did anybody see the interview with Patrick on the not Patrick from Vetted, but Patrick from the UAP sighting tracker map that we just did? That's new. That's up. If you're not familiar with that, let me see if I can pull that up and show you really quick for the people who don't know. I just want to shout this out because it's really interesting. Let me go to commentary. Oh, sweet Jesus Jones. I have so many tabs open. It's amazing that my computer's still running. Let's do this. Here we go. So the UAP sighting tracker map is a really interesting tool. If I can get my link to show up here. There we go. There it is. UAP sighting tracker map. This was the interview we did. It went up over the weekend. And this was is Patrick Berlinket's project that he has been working on for, I believe he said it was about 9 or 10 weeks at this point. And the URL is uapsightingtracker.com. If you didn't get a chance to see that interview, take a few minutes and just check it out when you get some time. But this is really cool. This is a map that he put together that is populated based on Google searches. And Patrick is a Google marketing consultant and expert, and this has been his wheelhouse for over a decade. He is highly skilled in this area, and he works with a lot of companies who are trying to optimize their search strategies and create campaigns to reach customers. And Patrick was looking at the type of work that he was doing, and he was kind of inspired to use that skill set in a different way. And so what he did, this is a really interesting story. Uh, he used the strategies that a Google AdWords expert would use in marketing, but he used them to identify people who were at risk of mental health crises, people who were needed to get into contact with mental uh, health experts, or he even used it to figure out where COVID-19 outbreaks were happening around the world in places where information was kind of hard to come by. And this is all done passively by Google searches. So he figured out a way that if someone searches for a term like, I want to commit suicide, or how do I kill myself, uh, no one was buying those search terms. So he started to basically lock down those search terms, and then anytime someone would search those terms, he would direct them to a suicide prevention hotline or some resource that could help them. And he found that the conversion rates were through the roof. And so it turned out there was this hole in the way um, Google was being used or utilized, and he figured out a way to use it to help people. He used it again to identify and locate people who were searching for like the symptoms of COVID. So like loss of smell, they would type in a search like loss of smell. And if you were in a part of the world that was kind of remote, or maybe information wasn't really coming out of that part of the world, but you had access to a computer and you could get to Google, then you could search those terms and hopefully find out what was going on. Well, he was able to access that data and then create a map that would show where potential outbreaks were happening based on the number of people searching their symptoms. Well, he took that same strategy. First of all, that was wildly successful. He wrote about it in the New York Times. He's been covered by Reuters and a bunch of other different organizations. This has been widely covered. And most recently, what he's done is he's put this into the UAP community, the same strategy. And he created this map called the UAP Sighting Tracker. And what you see on this map is the North America with all the different dots representing places where people are searching for how to report a sighting, or I saw a UFO, or um, how to identify a UFO, things like that. And this is brand new. It's only a few weeks old. It's still being developed, but if you get an opportunity to just check this out, you should go spend a few minutes looking at the site. He breaks it down into tables so you can access this data and use it for your own research. This is going to be greatly expanded. And you could see like this is searches by date, searches by hour of day, New York, New York, 9 p.m., 70 searches, Los Angeles, age of searcher by city, age undetermined. So some of these metrics, apparently, as he was explaining to me, and I'm not really much of an expert on how Google works, but it, when you do a search, the demographic data, the sort of picture of you that marketers use to identify how to sell you stuff, contains a ton of information: your age, your sex, your location, just all this data about you. And so that information can be parsed and put into this sighting tracker. Um, and I just wanted to shout this out to anybody who didn't know about this. This is not the main topic of today, but this is just something really interesting. There's another app called Enigma. And let me see if I can do this. Enigmalabs.com. I think it was Enigma Labs. Nope, not them. Enigma UAP. Oh, it is Enigma Labs. It's enigmalabs.io. There's an app called Enigma that does that also tracks sightings, but this app, let's see here. It's a lot more detailed, but you've got to download the app. You have to create an account. There's all these steps involved, but they collect data a little bit differently. So this is a much more involved process. What's cool about the UAP sighting tracker map is that it's all passive. So like you don't have to download the app. You don't have to like do anything. You just search like I saw a UFO and suddenly you've added that to this map. Uh, so it's just a different way of collecting data, and so data is a little bit different. It's interesting, and it's available to everybody. I guess he plans to expand this, provided that he can get the funding to do so, and eventually it's going to be a global map. And then he mentioned that he's going to be overlaying or creating some overlays that show like nuclear power plants, military bases, tree cover. I guess the sky's the limit in terms of what you could do, but yeah, it's a really interesting new development. And Patrick's just a really nice guy. We had a great conversation. Big fan of Fire in the Sky. Let's check the chat, see what's going on over here. Hello from India. Hello, India. Enigma has a YouTube. They do have a YouTube, and their commercials are awesome. Their commercials are really, really good. They've spent some money on their ads. I reached out to Enigma. I haven't gotten a response, but I think they're just kind of overwhelmed. They're based in New York. Heiser Soze. What up? USA Self Defense Centers. Can someone share the URL for this? Oh, there it is. Okay. Only US with Chameleon UK. Yeah, I think it's just a money thing. It's gonna be I guess he was saying it costs like $1,000 a month, anywhere between 500 and $1,000 a month to run this the way it's set up, because he has to bid on these keywords in order to make the whole thing work. And if someone uses it, I guess every time they use it, he has to basically pay for that. So to expand it and make it global is just going to cost a lot more. So I think the idea, at least as much as he was able to explain it to me, or my understanding of it, is that he's looking for people to partner with. He doesn't want to make it ad supported, because that's kind of cheesy. He wants it to be a really clean experience, a very um, uh, nice UI, really straightforward design that's not cluttered up by ads. I think we can all appreciate that. So yeah, that's the plan. Jessica Green says, "Ooh, I would be weary of the Enigma Labs app. It feeds your data into the DoD database, from what I hear. Pavel was warning me about it and to be careful of using it. I used it for quite a while." I finally got in contact with Pavel. We've been having a great text exchange back and forth, and he loaded me up with stuff to watch. He's given me so much stuff to watch. Pavel, if you see this, I'm sorry I left you hanging. I owe you a response, but I was trying to get maybe you and Patrick together, and we might even try to do that this Friday if you guys are available. I wonder what's going on with the DoD thing. Did anybody else hear that about the Enigma Labs app, that it feeds your information into a DoD database? I hadn't heard that before. Terrence Willis says, "Clint, can you please have Richard Dolan on? It would blow the roof off." Oh, I've got a spicy meatball for you guys today. I don't have, no, I don't, I would love to have Richard Dolan on. Richard Dolan is one of the top, if I had three people, if I could just pick my top three people, Richard Dolan is in the top two. And probably top one is like Bob Lazar or Lou Elizondo. But honestly, like Dolan is right there. And I would love to talk to Richard. I think I could probably reach out to him now. I reached out to him once before, but the channel was way smaller. I think we're finally, once we crossed that 10,000 subscriber mark, I think we kind of like became real and showed up on a few more radars, so maybe I'll be able to get a better response. I understand he's very busy and his time is extremely valuable, so I don't know. We'll see. If anybody has a direct line to Richard, please let me know. And I do have a spicy meatball for you on somebody else. Chameleon UK, thank you. Have you ever done a deep dive into Howard Hughes? No, I have not. But it's funny you mentioned that. My dad was just telling me the other day he owned an island down in the Bahamas. My folks used to scuba dive a lot, and they scuba dive down at this island that Howard Hughes used to own. Dad, are you watching? If you're watching, go in the chat and tell us the story. And he was just saying it's this like cool little island that he had a big thing set up for all his planes, and he could bring his planes in, and they would lift them up and park them in there. So no, I haven't done a deep dive on Howard Hughes, but I would be interested to. I think Dolan would come on. The playing of your music might vary in duration and placement. Consider it as a potential closing sometimes. Oh, that's a good point. Hey, folks, how's everybody doing? Daniel Golden, welcome. My mom and dad watch. I think they watch every show. I believe. I was like telling my mom the other day. She's like, "How's the channel going?" I was like, "It's going great. We got like 12,000 people almost." And she goes, "Well, two of them are me and your dad." And I said, "Oh, well, that's the most important too." So Richard Dolan lives in Rochester, New York. I've been trying to get him to come to our sushi bar, but still nothing. It's funny. I'm always looking around the supermarket for. That's funny. So spicy meatball. We're going to talk about Colares today, and I bring it up because uh, I've just been kind of like intrigued by this recently, and I was kind of doing a little low key research into it. And as I found out all kinds of interesting things. But one of them is where's this window? All right, I'm going to share something with this group that I don't normally share, but I'm going to share it with you because I think you guys are going to find this really interesting. I certainly found it interesting. Do we have any? How many Florida people do we have watching today? Do we have any Florida people? I know Brett, you're a Florida person. Uh, who else? Let me see here. Shout out if you're a Florida person. Anybody? And Chris Hovard wants to remind everybody if you want to be invited to the Discord, send a quick email to info@teamnightshift.com and they'll hook you up. Arkansas. Okay. We got a couple, one Florida. So I was born in Florida. I grew up in Florida. And where's my I gotta get this here we go. Why am I telling you that? I'm telling you that because I was reading can I go back to main view? Here we go. I was reading Imminent for I was just going back through that chapter on Colares, Brazil. That's the first part of the book when he's talking about Colares and the Operation Saucer. And as I was going through it, I was kind of like flipping through the pictures, and I've got the physical copy and I've got the audiobook, and I'd been going through the audiobook, but I was flipping through the physical copy, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, wait a second. So with the audiobook, I have the PDF, but I didn't go through all the PDF. I just was listening to the audiobook, and I'm looking through the actual book, and I'm just kind of going through the pictures, and I see Lou Elizondo in his ROTC photo. And underneath it, it says JROTC in ninth grade, Sarasota, Florida. Guess what? Lou Elizondo and I went to the same high school. And in fact, my mom and dad used to take us to the Red Lobster when we were kids that he worked at. And not only that, but his dad owned a restaurant in the town where my high school is, Sarasota, Florida. Check this out. This is crazy. So apparently, this is the local newspaper, the Sarasota Herald Tribune. From the shadows into the light, the man who broke the UFO embargo grew up in Sarasota. And it was just the craziest story. So I pointed this out to my wife, and she did a quick Google search and found this article. And she's like, holy crap. He went to which is where my wife went to college. And so we've got this really weird hometown connection to Lou Elizondo. Check this out. Egon Spengler. Heart of the Ghostbusters right there. And if you think for 1 second, I am not going to use that connection to talk Lou into coming onto this channel for an interview, you are out of your mind. I am absolutely going to play the Riverview High School card as soon as I get an opportunity. So that was just a really interesting meatball. I call that the spicy meatball. But yeah, weird, huh? Talk about synchronicities and weird synchronicities. I never knew this. I never knew this until today. That was the kind of the funny thing. Well, no, we talked about it once before. I think I mentioned it before, but I didn't know about this article. This is a new article. Funny coincidence. Weaponized is going live in half an hour with the same case. Which case? Disclosure is about, let's see. What do we have here? Favorite DJs are from Florida. I tried to move there a couple of times and lived in Kissimmee. Definitely miss having 4 seasons. Yeah, it's just 2 seasons in Florida. It's summer, diet summer. Christopher Hovord shouts out, and everybody should hear this. If you're emailing about the Discord server, please include your YouTube and Discord names in the email. That's something they need. All right. Yeah, weird synchronicity is right. So we're going to talk about the Colares situation today. Colares is a case that was highlighted in Imminent, and it's been talked about a little bit more lately, but it's kind of a famous case. And this is during a period in 1977, towards the end of the year. There was this little village in Brazil called Colares that was repeatedly harassed by UFOs, UAPs, orbs, and not just harassed, but these craft were seen coming in and out of the ocean, approaching this village. Now, this is a very small village. It has about 2,000 people at the time lived there. A fishing village. 2,000 people is a small high school, right? Like 2,000 people is, if you've, like, my school at the time when I was there had 3,000 people in it. So that was my high school, had 3,000 people. So it's like a small, medium-sized high school. 2,000 people. That's not a lot of people. All working in and around sort of the fishing economy that was supported by that local area. And they reported all kinds of strange things happening. Orbs being seen all over the village, all throughout the area, following people around, appearing out of nowhere, chasing people. Different types of craft were seen. Saucers were seen. Cigar-shaped craft were seen. Some of these craft seem to attack people, or I don't know if attack is the right word. It depends on how you look at it, but people reported being zapped by different beams of light, different colors of beams of light, blue beams, sort of amber beams, red beams. Some of the things that people reported were being stunned, being hit by a beam of light and just stunned completely, or put to sleep where they're just sort of sitting there and then a beam of light would hit them and they would just fall asleep, or they would just get super, super tired, like something happened and they were just like compelled to fall asleep, like getting choked out in jujitsu or something. Um, People being burned with like radiation burns or stung. A lot of people, particularly women, reported being hit with a beam, and then it felt like they had a puncture wound, like something punctured their skin, and usually on the left side of their chest. And those people often reported having blood removed or tissue removed, and that's very common in the reports. And so this has been looked at a lot. The Brazilian Air Force sent a team in to investigate this. It was called Operation Saucer or Operation Plate, but it's commonly known as Operation Saucer. And it was just really, really interesting. So the guy who was in charge of this organization, let me see if I can pull up some visual aids here to help us. I've got some videos pulled, and I want to show you some clips from these videos, but I've just got to bring up the right window here. Hang on a second. Now I'm going to show you some clips. They're in Portuguese. I can't. Someone out there has done an English translation on using AI, and if anybody can tell me what AI I can use to do that, it's the translation where it does it in the person's own voice. I know Google can do it. I just don't know how to. Like, where do I go to access this? I want to send this interview through it myself, and then I might even re-upload it to our channel just so people can have access to it, because it's like an hour and a half long interview with the Brazilian Air Force captain who was sent in to investigate this incident in 1977, and he talks about some crazy stuff. Um, Let me see if I can pull this up for you. Hal Puthoff has talked about this one. Okay, here we go.
Essas coisas estavam acontecendo,
All right, let me just reorganize my situation here. There we go. And let's turn off my whoops. Maybe I'll just do this. I'll float up here. There we go. All right. So this is Captain Holanda, who was in charge of investigating this. Now, basically, the situation it's complicated because it goes on for a long time. But if this small fishing village, about 2,000 people, they're getting multiple sightings daily. This is happening like all the time, and it gets so bad that the people who live in this village are so freaked out they stop fishing. They stop going outside at all unless they're in a group. They stop going out for food. People start going hungry because they're just terrified to leave their place. And some people even reported, and this is documented in the official military report, official Air Force report, that some of these craft would hit I don't know if they zapped their home with a beam, but they would hit a building, right, with some kind of a technology, and it would cause the walls or the roof of the building to just disappear, like evaporate or fade out, or I don't know what you would call it, but it almost like vaporize in some kind of a weird way, but not with some kind of like crazy explosion. It would just kind of like dematerialize is probably the best way to put it. So this is Captain Olanda talking about. I have 5 clips that I want to show you. This is the first one. 2 of them are kind of long, but this one's a little quicker. So let's take a look and see if I can get this to play, and then we'll talk about it.
chupa-chupa, tá? E ficou conhecido na época como...
Here, wait a second. Let me fix my audio. There we go. All right, let's try again.
Essas coisas estavam acontecendo, ligaram o chupa-chupa, tá? E ficou conhecido na época como chupa-chupa. Mas a Força Aérea precisava saber o que estava realmente acontecendo. O que era isso que estava acontecendo no espaço aéreo brasileiro. Porque nós temos a responsabilidade sobre o espaço aéreo brasileiro, como Marinha, sobre a água territorial brasileira, o mar territorial brasileiro. E o Exército, a parte de segurança de terra, a nossa parte tinha que ser cumprida.
E qual é a origem, vamos dizer assim, desse nome? O que motivou, vamos dizer assim, esse tipo de denominação por parte da população em relação ao fenômeno?
Bom, havia uma série de relatos de pessoas que tinham sido atingidas por uma luz e que julgavam que ele estivesse sugando o sangue das pessoas. Porque realmente, depois a gente foi verificar, tinham algumas, principalmente mulheres, no seio esquerdo, uma marca, como se fosse 2 furos de agulha, tá? E em torno, uma mancha castanha, como se fosse uma queimadura de iodo. Tá? As pessoas diziam que tinham sido sugadas, o sangue tinha sido sugado, uma parte, uma parcela pequena do sangue tinha sido retirada. Então, passaram a apelidade de chupa-chupa por causa desse fato. Porque uma luz vinha e incidia sobre a pessoa, e normalmente nas mulheres do seio esquerdo, homens no braço, na perna.
Qual era a proporção? Quantas mulheres para quantos homens?
Mais ou menos 8 para 10, em 10, 8 mulheres. Em 10 casos, 8 mulheres.
E vocês documentaram os efeitos físicos, as marcas, as pessoas, foi tudo documentado?
Foi visto, foi analisado, foi visto por médicos. Tá?
Tanto serviço como parte da operação?
Alguns foram conosco. Não me lembro o nome deles.
So, hopefully everybody caught that. If you're watching, you can see the subtitles, so it's a little bit easier to understand. But unless you speak Portuguese, you're going to need the subtitles. Terrence Willis, Christina Gomez has a great episode on this. She's great. She has a fantastic channel. I'm actually a big fan of Christina Gomez's channel. Yeah, this guy, I'm just gonna give you the spoiler alert. He gets strangled to death. This gentleman here, after this interview, shortly after this interview, he dies in a mysterious strangulation accident. I don't know, but he dies under very weird, mysterious circumstances. But in this clip, he's talking about the name of the that the local people gave to these creatures. They called them chupa chupa, which is translated into suck suck, because they get hit with these lights and then tissue is removed, some blood is removed. And Captain Holanda goes on later to talk about this in more detail, and he suggests that in his estimation, if you watch the full interview, he says he doesn't think this was an attack, insofar as like there wasn't the intention wasn't overtly to harm people specifically, which is interesting because the way Lou characterizes this in Imminent is much more dark. I think it's darker, I should say, maybe not much more, but it seems more sinister. He has this kind of because a few people did die, a number of people were injured, and there were a lot of people who were terrified. But Captain Holanda goes on to say that in his training and in his work in the Brazilian Air Force, one of the things that he had to do was he came into contact with a lot of indigenous people. And so part of his job was making sure that none of the indigenous people got contaminated by any of the viruses or bacteria or anything that would be carried around by people who live in cities or in regular civilization. He just didn't want to expose them to any biological contaminants that might harm them. And he suggests that was his hypothesis of what these beings were doing, that they were pulling tissue samples from people in that area so that they could analyze their blood and figure out what antibodies they had in their blood, what viruses they'd been exposed to, what biological threats might be around that these other NHI would possibly have to contend with in a more open contact scenario. One of the other things that people mentioned in this case that I thought was really interesting was how, and Lou talks about it in his book, I think I've even got it here pulled up, that the people who saw these craft, here we go. Here's the clip, or here's the excerpt. I'll share it with you. Let's do. That. We got too much stuff going on. Okay, here we go. So you can see this. Here we go. Let's resize this. This is one of the things we're going to fix in the next, like, when we evolve the live streams a little more and I get an extra pair of hands to help, Xander's going to help me produce some of these so that I don't have to fumble around and constantly like search through tabs and rearrange my whole desktop. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. Here we go. Fit the screen. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so in some cases, here we go. In some cases, witnesses managed, this is from Imminent, talking about the same case, Colares, Brazil. In some cases, witnesses managed to catch a glimpse of their attackers. Descriptions of the occupants of these otherworldly vehicles broke down into two types: beings that appeared to be pale, tall, adult humanoids, and beings with disproportionately large heads and frail bodies, about 3 or 4 feet tall. As I would later learn, these two descriptions, the so-called Nordics and Greys, fit the profile of the alleged aliens from countless close encounters the world over. If this was some form of mass hysteria, then it had been affecting the entire globe for decades. Thousands of people in the region remain traumatized by their encounters. Now, we'll go on to the next clip here. This is just an interesting sidebar, but Nordics and Greys. Nordics and Greys. This is a rural fishing village in Brazil, 1977. They're being harassed so much that they stop going fishing. They stop going out in groups. They start carrying around guns and shooting off fireworks, and they build bonfires to try and like light up the village so that they can scare away these things. They're terrified. They are completely terrified. And what they're describing is a humanoid Nordic, not non-human, but that looks more or less human, and Greys, which is really bizarre. Not bizarre because if you're a student of ufology, like we've been reading about this forever. Like Billy Meyer talked about Nordics go all the way back to the earliest parts of the even the Germans pre-World War II claimed to have contact with Nordic aliens. This has been going on for a long time. So it's really weird to see it keep cropping up again and again and again, and to see somebody like Captain Olanda and then again Lou in Imminent talking about it. The Greys, we've known about the Greys for a long time, but one of the other things we hear commonly about Greys is that they're kind of like a drone almost. There's some sort of Gary Nolan says this. He thinks that there's some kind of a biological android, like an android you could grow in a vat that would basically be like a labor. Like they do whatever you need them to do. And I've been thinking about this a little bit lately. He even suggested, or he kind of described it in such a way that it's like if you wanted to create a biological android that you could send out to do things so that you didn't have to put yourself in harm's way, that would make a lot of sense for an NHI. And so the question I'm asking is, do you guys think the Greys are a drone species that's been created or is being used by another species of NHI? What do you think? I think they might be. And I think that there might be some connection to the Colares case where they talk about seeing both of them. We're going to go on to another video clip, and this gets weirder, so stick with me. Let me see if I can pull up the next clip for us. Let me bring my PDF down here. There we go. All right, here's the second clip. Captain Olanda.
Mais comuns.
Não. Tem algumas estranhas e que a gente foi depois comprovar que eram realmente.
Now they're talking about the shapes of the craft. They saw a number of different shapes of craft. take a look at these illustrations. This is all taken from the official military report that was put together on this, because I'm going to show you some other stuff in a second that's going to melt your brain.
Não, tem algumas estranhas e que a gente foi depois comprovar que eram realmente tinham acontecido. Desmaterialização de parede inteira, de telhado.
Como assim?
A primeira senhora que eu entrevistei em Colares, eu tinha saído de helicóptero de Belém para Colares. Pousamos em Ibituba para colher uns dados, fica perto de Colares. E decolamos de helicóptero para Colares. Chegamos em Colares e eu fui ouvir uma senhora que tinha sido queimada por esse tal do chupa-chupa, falava. Eu vi, realmente, ela me fez exposição do seio esquerdo, tinha marca, como eu escrevi, marca castanha, como se fosse uma queimadura, e 2 pontos, tá? De perfuração, às vezes era 1 ponto, tá? Quando nós estávamos conversando com ela, ela me descreveu que estava sentada numa rede, fazendo uma criança dormir, tá? E de repente o ambiente começou a mudar de temperatura. Começou a ficar uma temperatura estranha. Ela achou esquisito aquilo, mas nunca ia imaginar o que iria ocorrer a seguir. Ela, deitada na rede, viu que a telha começou a ficar avermelhada, como se você tivesse chegado um charuto numa folha de papel. Ela foi ficando avermelhada, depois ficou vendo o céu. A telha desapareceu. Ficou como se fosse um vidro. Ela via o céu. Tá? Ela via do outro lado, ela estava vendo as estrelas. Tá? Aí eu fiquei mais preocupado ainda, fiquei mais curioso ainda.
E esse povo parecia ser sincero.
Tá? E desse buraco que ela falou, que apareceu, veio uma luz verde, primeiro, que ela ficou meia dormente, e logo em seguida um raio vermelho. Uma luz vermelha, um raio vermelho.
E atingiu o seio dela.
O seio dela, seio esquerdo.
Sempre do lado esquerdo.
A maioria das vezes, ela...
So he's saying that he was talking to a woman who described a craft appearing above her house and making the roof turn red and then dematerialize. She looked up at the ceiling of her place. She's putting her child to sleep. She looks up, she sees the ceiling start to turn red, and then it just disappears. And she's looking up into the sky. And then a beam of light comes down and hits her in the left breast, and she gets 2 puncture wounds with what looks like iodine stains around them, or like a burn, and has blood and tissue removed. What? And he goes on. That clip is short, but he goes on in the next part of that, and he says that as he's there investigating, he's talking to that woman. He's getting her description, and he looks up, and they go outside, and he looks up, and there's a craft right above where they're at. He can see it. He sees it himself. It's crazy. So look, we're going to go on to the next clip, but just stick with me. They just get weirder. All right, let's do clip number 3. I think this is about the craft, the actual shape of the craft.
Forte. Era isso. É brilho dessa natureza, azul, muito azul.
Mas dava para se ver, não
se via a forma, se via a luz.
Vocês fotografaram esse objeto?
Fotografamos. Levamos baile de 2 meses. Não saía.
Oh, so he's talking about photographing the craft, and this is really fascinating. Watch this. Listen to what he has to say about photographing the craft, because this is weird. Hang on, we're going to tie this to something modern, something that just happened recently. You're going to see exactly what the connection is.
Eu estava vendo a luz forte, fotografava, pô, agora vai sair, não saía nada. Não vimos nada. Quando a gente pegava o negativo, não tinha nada.
Várias vezes aconteceu isso?
Várias. Nós levamos um samba de 2 meses. Até que aconteceu uma coincidência. Eu acho que coincidência não existe, mas aí foi um fato inusitado. Eu estava analisando e muito triste, muito chateado, porque eu não conseguia imprimir aquelas imagens na emulsão fotográfica. E na minha mesa tinha uma lanterna que eu usava em operações de selva. Estava lá, nem sei por quê, porque talvez eu tivesse revisão do equipamento de selva, fazendo manutenção dele, e a lanterna estava em cima da minha mesa. E eu estava olhando os fios, os negativos.
Vendo que não aparecia nada.
Nada. Eu olhando muito triste, pô, mas a gente encheu o quadro e não apareceu nada. Eu observei que a lanterna, ela tinha lá numa extremidade, ela tinha uma lanterna normal. Na outra extremidade, a outra ponta, ela tinha uma capa vermelha que servia para sinalização em selva, tá? Uma sinalização vermelha. Você bota um sinal.
Okay, I'm going to pause here because what he's talking about is this military style flashlight that was like this was standard issue for everybody back in the day. I don't know if they still use. I don't think they still use the same kind, but I'm going to show you what this looks like so you can see. Um, mm, 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 mm. Oh, that's a Chrome window. That's why. This is what it looks like. This is what he's talking about. This. And he's saying he's got this flashlight on his desk. So he's looking. So they were trying to photograph these craft. They see them all the time. And he'd show up with his team of like 5 or 6 guys. They'd go out to the village. They'd have all this camera gear. He talks about the lenses they use. They had 1,000 millimeter. They had 3,000 millimeter lenses. They had these just badass Nikon camera gear, but they couldn't get photos for 2 months. They photographed these craft. He said they would fill the viewfinder. They would just fill it with the whole craft. It would just be this big light, and they're looking through the camera. They take the picture, and nothing would come out. So later, he's sitting in his office, and he's frustrated, and he's kind of annoyed that he spent all this time, all this resources, photographing these things, and he can't see any craft. And he realizes that the doctors on the team were, when they looked at X-rays, they put them up on the little X-ray, the whatever you call that thing, the light. It's a little light box, and you stick the X-ray up on it and look at it. And he's like thinking about that, and then he realizes he's got a flashlight on his desk, one of these military flashlights that have the different colored lenses. So here's where we go next with this.
No carro, né? Fica aquela luzinha vermelha. Se tirasse aquela capa, ela tinha uma tampa, ela tinha um vidro fosco. Fosco. Eu olhei aquilo e me lembrei que os médicos examinam as radiografias no radioscópio, que é um quadro opaco, com luz por trás, e eles colocam a chapa radiográfica ali para examinarem, para ver o contraste de luz e sombra, né? E eu olhei, pô, eu estou com um radioscópio aqui, eu nem sei se é esse o nome que chamam esses aparelhos médicos, mas eu peguei uma fita, um filme, e coloquei ali. E observei que tinha um ponto, tinha um objeto. Eu não estava procurando nenhuma marca, nenhum objeto. Eu estava procurando luz. Luz eu não via. E observei que tinha realmente um cilindrozinho. Em todo o filme tinha aquele cilindro. Então eu tinha conseguido imprimir a parte sólida daquele avistamento
e não a luz.
E não a luz, por uma questão de...
So he's saying that when he shined the light through the negative, he was able to see that there was actually something in the shots, that he actually did get something in the shots that he wasn't able to see before. He was looking for a big glowing ball of light because that's what they were seeing on the ground. But when they took the picture, that's not what they photographed. What they photographed turned out to be what he describes as a cylinder, like a solid cylinder.
Comprimento de onda, eu não sei porquê, a luz não me impressionava aquele filme. Mas a parte sólida, a sonda, que depois a gente veio concluir que seria uma sonda, era um cilindro, tá? Aquilo estava impresso ali. E não estava procurando cilindro, eu estava procurando luz. Eu ficava triste, que não via luz nenhuma. Porque está muito claro aquele filme, né?
Vocês fizeram muitas fotografias?
Fizemos muitas fotografias. Mais de 500.
Quantas fotos de UFOs foram feitas?
Quase todas tinham.
They took almost 500 photographs, or they took over 500 photographs, and almost all of them had UFOs in them. And he says they determined that this thing they saw was a probe. Now I'm going to go back to the still photo here. This is the still from one of the photos that he has. And I'm going to show you. Hold on. I'm looking for this one. There it is. Okay. So these are from the actual official reports on that incident. This is the description of that craft. So here's the picture. This is a photograph. This is what witnesses saw. They described the thing as having two. In the distance, it looked like a reddish yellow star. It changed color from light yellow, this is where I am, to red. When closer, a bluish brightness was observed at the upper front part. It had the shape of a barrel with a pipe of smaller diameter, reddish at its front, and another thinner one on the left side at 45 degrees, which had the purpose of emitting the beam of bluish light. Apparent dimensions were 1.2 to 1.4 meters, giving an idea of transparency to the bluish luminous part with a division between its crew members. It had two crew members. Here's the description, the full description. The person who saw it, Manuel Joaquim. He was in front of his house in the company of some friends, Julio, Paulo, Deca, and Carlito, when he saw a yellowish light moving in the east-west direction, decreasing its speed and stopping almost about 20 meters from the group. He said he then perceived, while the light was equipped with two entities of human appearance, a being, the man, occupied the left side and the woman the right side of the machine. Both wore glasses of different sizes and intercom equipment. The entity on the left brought his hands to the glasses as to observe more carefully the group of people. At the same time, the other, through a tube existing in the lateral part, directed a red light in the direction of the group. Having been reached directly, he felt a strong shaking, an electric shock that began from the feet to the head, and there occurred immobilization of the upper and lower limbs and semi-consciousness. The device moved away, gradually increasing speed. Manuel moved again, but nevertheless felt numb for a few minutes. So that's this craft. There's the little tube sticking out of the side. There's the two occupants of the craft. They're wearing headsets and some kind of glasses, which I find really interesting. That's just very interesting detail because that doesn't seem like magical technology to me. Sitting here in 2024, I'm not like, oh my God, they're like gods. I'm like, they're a little more advanced, maybe. But they're not. I mean, if you need glasses and headphones, like that's interesting, right? What do you think? What about that little detail? So we're going to go to something else. Now, what does this remind you of? Look at this cylinder. Look at this drawing. And now look at this. Who remembers the Metapod? This is the stabilized Metapod footage. Here we go. Let's do this. Does this not look like it could be almost the same thing? I don't want to say it's exactly the same thing. It doesn't look like as clunky as the drawing that we just looked at. But that looks interesting. Here's the pod. Here's the transparent front. some kind of a glass, something transparent cover on the front or windscreen. All right, we're reaching here a little bit with these extreme zooms. Oh, there you go. So you can see here, this is all the different little angles. And then let's go back here. That's the picture. And then here's this description. I don't know. What do you think? Are we looking at the same thing here? Metapod, Colares probe, Metapod. I don't know. I think there's something weirdly similar about these, and I don't know. I can't shake it. Headsets were mentioned. Terrence Willis says headsets were mentioned many times in different cases to help connect the pilots to the ship via consciousness or other means. I just think that the necessity of putting on a headset and glasses, like that seems like it's technology that's familiar enough to us from our vantage point of technological development that I feel like if you had access to a craft like this and you walked in and you saw the headset and the earphones sitting there, like you would know what to do with those. You would pick them up and maybe put them on. It wouldn't seem like it's not like a little crystal hovering in a gravity field that's emitting some weird light and it's communicating directly with your consciousness. It's not like something super far gone advanced. It's more within the realm of what I could imagine us having maybe within the next 25 to 50 to 100 years, maybe. I don't know. And I think the grays as drones idea is it's getting more traction with me because if you think about even in abduction reports where people talk about having contact, like physical contact with these things, which Holanda does later, he talks about this. People describe their skin feeling like a mushroom, almost like if you touch their flesh, it feels almost like a mushroom or a marshmallow. It doesn't feel like living flesh. They describe it as sort of like it's soft and mushy, but it's not like what you would expect. And that's consistent with this idea of some kind of a drone being. So the question is, would you make a drone that looked nothing like, if you were making this drone, right? Whoever the thing is, whatever the NHI is that's manufacturing these things or producing them, whatever you want to call it, and then sending them out. Does the gray look anything like the intelligence that built it, or does it look nothing like the intelligence that built it? If we're to believe these sightings, and what they're saying is Nordics and grays are seen together, that can either mean they're two different races that are working together, or one is working for the other, or one created the other. And if the Nordics created the grays, I know this is like wild speculation. We're just totally spitballing here. But it would be interesting if they chose to create something that looked humanoid, but not human, and then send that out. And so that when we have contact with those grays, we think that that's what they look like, but that's not what they look like. That's not what the actual NHI looks like. Because if we were to find out that they look just like us, that would probably be even more frightening. I don't know. Would it be frightening or would it be exciting? If you found out that it's like V, like they come down, they land, they get out, and they look just like us. And it's like, that's weird. would that freak you out more or less? I don't know how I would react to that, but I feel like that's an interesting question. What do you guys think? Let's go on to the next clip and see what Captain Yolanda has to say next. I think we got 2 more. This is clip 3. We're going to go to 4, and then I've got 1 more after. Now, this one's kind of long, but it's worth it.
Forte. Era isso. É um brilho dessa natureza. Azul, muito azul.
Mas dava para se ver, não
Não
machucava.
se via a forma, se via a luz.
Vocês fotografaram esse objeto?
Fotografamos. Levamos um baile de 2 meses. Não saía nada. A gente enchia o quadro da fotografia, via, eu estava vendo a luz forte, fotografava, pô, agora vai sair. Não saía nada. Não vimos nada. Quando a gente pegava o negativo, não tinha nada.
Várias vezes aconteceu isso?
Várias. Nós levamos um samba de 2 meses. Até que aconteceu uma coincidência. Eu acho que coincidência não existe, mas aí foi um fato inusitado. Eu estava analisando e muito escuro questão. Não saía luz nenhuma naquilo. Eu estava procurando ver o que eu, no negativo, o que eu tinha visto. E não aparecia. Então, depois nós fomos olhar com curiosidade e fomos ampliar, passamos para o laboratório para ampliar aquilo. Realmente era a sonda que estava ali.
Era sonda.
Era uma sonda. E depois que a gente estava com dificuldade já nessa parte técnica fotográfica, eu tinha um irmão da maçonaria chamado Milton Mendonça, que já faleceu. Ele era cinegrafista da TV Liberal e era esperto em fotografia. Eu pedi a ajuda dele, porque confiava nele. Sabia que ele, participando da operação, ele não ia comentar com ninguém. Eu tinha absoluta segurança de que o assunto ia ficar restrito ao nosso grupo. Informei ao meu comandante de que eu estava com dificuldade na parte técnica de fotografia e pedi essa ajuda ele autorizou. E o Milton, algumas vezes, esteve conosco e sempre auxiliava. Nós passamos desafios especiais. Fios infravermelho, ultravioleta, não sei se o nome certo é esse. Tá? Mas passamos a usar fios especiais. Pedimos a Brasília e eles mandaram esse filme para nós.
E o resultado passou a ser
bem melhor.
Okay. So there he's talking about as their understanding of how to photograph these objects got better. They brought in, at first when they weren't sure what they were doing, there's a bunch of Air Force guys. They're not exactly like trained photographers, but they know what they're doing enough to go in and take pictures. They bring in a trained photographer. That's his whole wheelhouse. He comes in and he says, you guys need special filters. You need infrared filters, your infrared film, ultraviolet filters. You need, polarizers. You need to like put some filters on your cameras because there's somehow you're not getting the full picture of what it is you're trying to photograph. And Yolanda says that after they did that, they started to see a huge improvement in their ability to photograph these craft. So my question for this group is, and I think he's going to show a few of the pictures here.
Ver alguma coisa, filme, a luz e outras formas que a gente nem imaginava que pudéssemos impressionar a emoção com essa forma.
Esses objetos vistos, qual era o padrão mais comum quanto à forma? Quais padrões apareciam e foram constatados por vocês?
No início nós vimos o que todo mundo falava, inclusive o padre Alfredo Delaó, já morreu também, padre americano, que era o pároco lá de Colares. Ele me falava de uma sonda que ele tinha visto várias vezes, era como se fosse, e mais ou menos do tamanho de um tambor de óleo de 200 litros. Essa sonda voava com um voo irregular, ela não tinha um voo seguro, ela voava como se estivesse balançando. E emitia luz. E às vezes andava uma ou duas juntas.
Saía de onde? Ia para onde?
De repente a gente via a luz e ela vinha em cima normalmente em cima da...
All right. So my question for this group is, and by the way, the witness who described that probe that they saw, the one that looked like an oil drum, like sort of like a cylinder with the probe arm sticking out the side, was the parish priest, was an American priest in that area who described that. So a person who is not full of shit, is not lying. Bearded UFO guy Gaz, thank you. What a guy. Just a shout out to bearded UFO guy Gas. How did the priest pass? I don't know how the priest passed, but he's no longer with us. My question to you guys is, I know how Hollanda passed. He was strangled to death. Which we'll talk about that in a second. So they started using specialized equipment, and they were able to photograph these craft more easily, and they got better pictures of what they were looking at. So let me do this. Let's go here. So here are some of the pictures that they were able to get, and what we see are these balls of light, which look like a ball of plasma, or just some like a glowing orb. In Imminent, in the chapter called The Aha Moment, Lou talks about a meeting in a skiff with Hal Puthoff, where Hal is basically writing out the equations for what he thinks is going on. Hal is like the Egon of their group. And he's basically saying these craft create a bubble of localized space-time around the craft. So inside the craft, time passes normally for the occupants of the craft. They feel no acceleration. They feel nothing. They're just in a localized bubble of space-time that is connected to their craft. And it will appear to an outside observer like a ball of light because of the gravitational lensing of all the light in the area. And depending on what you're looking at it with, you're going to see different wavelengths of light coming off of this thing. And certain filters would probably reveal those craft where other filters might not. And I don't know if, I wonder if there's a way to phase shift the bubble around the craft to make it go completely invisible, or to change its visual signature in some way. So the question I have is, as civilians, as citizens, as UFO enthusiasts, what gear are you guys aware of that people are using to try and photograph these things now? Like, I've heard everything from the old school night vision goggles from the early, like, or mid 90s, that particular style of green night vision goggles are particularly good at revealing some of these things. Various different photographic filters can be used. I've heard people describe shooting at different frame rates, making a difference. There's a lot of interest in this area of citizen scientists trying to figure out ways to photograph and observe these things, and then try to start collecting data on it. Is anybody here aware of any techniques that work? I'm curious. Don't cross the beams. Every team needs an Egon. Every team does need an Egon. And a wild card. Every team needs a wild card. Well, don't know for sure, but that has always been my, this is through my 70s. I'm going to go to the last clip here, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up.
Verificar que tem pelo menos 9 formas a gente conseguiu determinar, classificar como formas de naves. Alguns eram sondas, alguma fotografia parecia uma nave maior e dela saindo naves menores. Depois essas naves menores voltando para essa nave maior. Tudo isso como se fosse uma nave mãe recebendo ou naves ou sondas menores.
Isso foi documentado fotograficamente?
Foi. E filmado também.
Quais eram os equipamentos que eles utilizaram para registrar todo esse material?
Máquina fotográfica, não posso dizer, sei lá, mas eram máquinas fotográficas profissionais, teleobjetivas de 300, de 1000. Essa é um terror para trabalhar com ela, porque ela tira de foco rapidamente. Qualquer bobeada, qualquer movimento, ela já saiu de foco. Era um terror, era um trambolho enorme. Uma bicha desse tamanho, enorme, que a gente não conseguia operar muito com ela, não. Tá? Até para localizar é muito difícil.
E filmadora?
Filmadora.
Algum outro tipo de instrumento além desse?
Gravador.
Para gravar as reações de vocês?
Possibilidade de algum ruído, alguma coisa.
Vocês tinham expectativa de que essas naves entrassem em contato com vocês? Esse era um dos objetivos do projeto da Operação Prato?
Olha, a gente estava exposto a tudo. Para te falar a verdade, eu não estou fazendo mistério nem sensacionalismo disso aí, porque não me interessa nenhuma coisa dessa natureza. Podia acontecer qualquer coisa. Mas a gente estava em uma operação militar, era obrigação militar. Se ocorresse, ocorreu em serviço.
Vocês estavam portando arma?
Não.
Nenhum momento?
Nenhum momento.
Eu nunca pensou em levar uma arma?
Não.
Por via da dúvida?
Nenhum momento. Nunca andamos armados, não interessava, não esperávamos que houvesse necessidade, portanto não tinha, nunca foi nem pensado na montagem da operação, na parte logística da operação, alimentação, transporte, armamento. Armamento estava fora, nunca foi pensado em arma nisso aí.
That's an interesting point. He's saying that they never thought about taking weapons with them or including weapons in their kit because they just didn't think it was necessary for what it was that they were doing, which is in kind of stark contrast to the tone that Lou Elizondo uses to describe this scenario in his book. He describes it as being much more alarming, and like the accounts of the people in the village they seem terrified. They seem terrified. So it's interesting that his team didn't really feel concerned by any of this. And actually, there were people who described shooting at the beings that they saw. In fact, one guy there was one witness account. I don't have it pulled up here, but there's one witness where he said he saw a craft of some kind. I guess it might have been one of these probes. There was a light shining through his door. He gets up, he goes to the door, he opens it. There's this like red light coming through. There's what appears to be some kind of a craft, or like a small craft there with two people in it. And the two people were described more or less as human. And he says they were like pointing at him and they were laughing like they were making fun of him, or they were like joking about him, or they were just making like they were remarking about something in the room and pointing in his direction. And he takes a shotgun. This guy's badass. He pulls out a shotgun. He points it at this thing and pulls the trigger, and it just goes click and nothing happens. And he can't fire his weapon. And then he gets really like disoriented and sleepy, and that's the end of that. So that was a really weird, weird witness account. But let's go on with Captain Olan.
Em algum momento dentro da operação de que esse fenômeno pudesse ser perigoso em termos objetivos?
Uma vez, sim. Uma vez foi muito forte o aparecimento, e você tem que detalhar como foi, mas realmente essa coisa aconteceu e eu tive muito medo de que houvesse uma abdução. Como é que foi isso? Só para te fazer um parênteses, não te interrompendo e já tendo interrompido, eu depois fui conversando com Rafael Semperi Durá. O Rafael me deu um tremendo de um esporro. Me chamou de maluco, de irresponsável, tá? E disse: você está proibido, você tem comandante, mas eu que sou seu amigo estou lhe proibindo de fazer uma coisa dessa. Nós estamos numa embarcação, ancorada na margem do rio, e a coisa parou na frente da gente a 70 metros. Como é que era essa coisa? Bom, para te responder essa pergunta, eu tenho que dizer por que nós estávamos lá. Vamos ouvir então a história completa.
Okay. Now he's going to describe his own encounter, Captain Olanda. And this gets weird.
Que era oficial da FAB, na época, Capitão Vitor polonês, Vitor Jamielniak, é o nome difícil, aliás. Mas fica só com o Vitor que fica mais fácil. E o Vitor gostava muito de pescar. Ele estava pescando esse rio gostoso de pescar, muito fácil. Pois é, ele pescando, ele soube de um caso, ele sabia que eu estava, toda a Força Aérea sabia que a gente estava nessa investigação. Ele soube de um caso de um rapaz que trabalhava com... ele apanhava barro para essa olaria. Tá? Ele tirava barro lá no rio para essa olaria. E ele soube de um caso que ocorreu com esse rapaz e sabia que eu estava investigando e foi me procurar, me contando sobre o Luiz. Essa olaria era a olaria Koiffer, de Paulo Koiffer, dono do Foto Koiffer lá em Belém. Keuffer, K-E-U-F-F-E-R. E ele me falou sobre esse Luiz. Eu mandei buscar o Luiz. Mandei um agente lá com um carro apanhar o Luiz, que eu queria conversar com ele. Ele me contou um fato incrível. Ele, quando estava colhendo barro, ele viu vestígios de que havia caça comendo restos de flores de uma árvore que estava em floração, tá? Na beira do rio. Ele acompanhou e viu onde é que essa caça comia. Era a paca. Conhece a paca? Conhece. Tinha uma paca comendo nesse lugar. Eu disse, pô, eu vou voltar para pegar essa paca, tá? Vou matar essa caça aí. Levou o barro para a olaria, esvaziou o batelão, era uma embarcação de uns 7 a 9 metros, motor de centro. Ele foi, deixou o barro lá, esvaziou a embarcação, passou na casa dele, apanhou uma espingarda e voltou para lá de dia. Preparou um giral, onde ele pudesse ficar, numa árvore baixa, armou uma rede e ficou com a lanterna e espingarda lá para esperar que a caça chegasse para ele atirar. Escureceu, ele estava lá em cima no giral, sentado na rede dele lá, esperando ouvir algum barulho para começar a se preparar para atirar na caça. E passou por cima dele uma luz muito forte. A luz passou e logo depois voltou e parou em cima dele. Parou em cima do centro dessa nave que ele descreveu, e não era de forma discorde, não. Era uma forma como se fosse a cabine de um Boeing, uma forma elipsoide. Do bojo do ventre dessa nave, abriu uma porta e desceu um ser, com forma humana. Desceu, eu perguntei a ele se desceu por escada de corda ou de metal, alguma coisa assim. Ele disse, não, ele desceu sim, de um foco de luz. Ele desceu, né, com os braços abertos assim, forma de delta. Ele desceu. Quando ele se aproximou.
Okay, so this isn't Yolanda's encounter yet. That's the next clip. I'm sorry, but he's talking about a witness that he's interviewing that saw this craft that looked like the front half of a Boeing jet. A door opens up in the bottom of this craft. This witness is waiting in this little camped out area for some game to appear that he saw earlier in the day, and he's planning on shooting this game to take home. And he sees this craft. This craft flies over. A door opens up in the bottom, and a beam of light hits the ground. Remember that? What's that song? "Children of the Sun" by Billy Thorpe. Beam of light hits the ground, and then a being travels down the beam of light like they're almost like a tractor beam, like they're just drifting down in a low gravity field. You know who did that in Dune? They did this in the Dune remake. They show these guys, they have these like gravity belts, and they can sort of just fall in a really slow motion, sort of fall and then land. And he's describing this being. Now listen to what happens next.
Quando ele viu aquele ser descendo, ele pulou fora. Ele pulou dali onde ele estava e se escondeu próximo. E ficou observando, botou um galho, um ramo de árvore no rosto, e ficou vendo o que estava acontecendo. Esse ser chegou, tinha uma luz vermelha na mão. Ele não era uma lanterna que ele segurasse, era uma coisa que talvez estivesse por aqui, assim, na palma. Uma luz vermelha na mão, ele desceu, examinou a rede dele, examinou o lugar onde ele estava, e ele estava com um ramo de folha na frente, né? Olhando, escondido lá, morrendo mesmo. Né? Esse ser depois não procurou, não ficou vasculhando, procurando onde ele estava. Ele foi direto onde ele estava. Ele focou direto onde ele estava.
So this being comes down out of the craft, and on the palm of its hand, it has this red light, like a glowing light, almost like built into the glove of this hand or the hand itself. He takes this light and he starts scanning this campsite, scanning this area where this guy was, this witness. And he's like running this light over everything and he's scanning it. And the person who's describing this, the witness, is freaking out. They saw this happening and they ran into the bush and are hiding, panicked, with a tree branch in front of their face, watching all this happen. And then this being doesn't search for the witness. They just look right where they are as if they know exactly where this person is. Like they have predator vision or something, like heat vision. And they just come straight for the witness. The being comes straight for the witness.
Quando ele viu que tinha sido localizado, ele correu. Correu por dentro da vegetação. O rio ali sofre muita influência. Sofre muita, não, sofre total influência da maré. Ele baixa e sobe de acordo com a maré. Vira uma lama. Isso. Ele saiu por ali, para aquela margem, tropeçando em tronco, em raízes, e com dificuldade de caminhar. Esse ser voltou para a nave. E a nave passou a entrar na calha do rio. E persegui ele a baixa velocidade, só que eu estava dentro do rio. A altura das árvores. Algumas vezes abaixo da copa das árvores. No cavalo do rio. E acompanhando, mas bem devagar. E ele estava com dificuldade de andar. Como ele pretendia caçar e voltar, ele não entrou com o barco, porque senão o barco seria encalhado. Com a baixa da maré. O barco ficou num lugar onde tinha flutuabilidade. E nesse barco tinha um garoto de 9 anos de idade, na época, e um amigo dele que ficou tomando conta do barco. E ficaram pescando siri. Tem muito siri nesse rio. Eles ficaram pegando siri. E o cara estava ouvindo com o radinho o jogo do Campeonato Brasileiro. Esse jogo de futebol que passa a noite. Aí estava ouvindo. E ele veio andando, veio correndo e gritando. E gritava para chamar a atenção dos amigos, que ele queria entrar no barco e ir embora. E essa coisa atrás dele, acompanhando. Ele, quando chegou perto, começou a gritar desesperado, até que o garoto chamou a atenção do companheiro dele, e o cara largou o futebol e olhou, ele apontou, olha ali, o cara viu. Todos eles viram, eles pularam para dentro d'água. Em vez de ajudar o Luiz, eles pularam dentro d'água. Abandonaram o barco.
Okay. So what he's describing is this craft comes down. This guy is waiting there for some game that he saw earlier to shoot it. This craft shows up. A beam of light comes down. This creature, this non-human, comes out of it. This humanoid being starts scanning everything with this red light. The witness freaks, goes into the jungle, is hiding there, and then this being locks onto him and starts following him. He takes off and disappears into the jungle, starts running, and he's frantically trying to get away from this thing. The being goes back into the ship. The witness is taking off in the jungle, tripping over logs, tripping over rocks, falling, getting hurt, scraping up, running back to where the boat was that he used to get there in the first place. On the boat is a 9-year-old, I think it was a 9-year-old kid, and a friend of his who were minding the boat while he was off doing his thing. And they're sitting on the boat listening to a soccer game on the radio. And he's screaming, he comes running up and he's screaming at at the people on the boat. They turn back. This craft is following him down the river. It's like flying up, following the bends of the river, really low, just above the water, following them. And he's screaming. He's like, this thing is coming. This thing is coming. They look, they see it. This is like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Remember Raiders, where he comes running out of the temple, and Jacques, the pilot. Remember Jacques? He's on the plane or whatever. He's fishing, and Indy comes running out. And he's like, start the engine. And he gets on the plane, and then this Jacques snake is in the back. Yeah, trust me. And then they take off and they get away. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But really weird, right? Okay, so last clip. This really is the last one, and then we'll wrap it up here. But check this out. This is the weirdest one.
Entrou no rumo do continente, do lado de Belém, e foi embora. Não desapareceu, foi embora. Tá? Aí, bom, agora piorou. Agora mesmo só sai daqui quando vir mais coisas, porque agora está pintando que pode acontecer mais alguma coisa na frente. Era mais ou menos, foi 11 horas, 11 e meia por aí. Tá? No relatório está a hora certa, eu já faz tantos anos, mas era em torno de entre 11 horas e meia-noite. Tá? Nós começamos a conversar, a comentar, pô, mas que tal esquisito, você viu janelinha? Aí veio a história de detalhamento, pô, mas que tal, parece uma bola de futebol americano, parece, pô, não sei o que, tudo bom. 1h da manhã, entre 1h30, no relatório está preciso isso, ela veio acompanhando a mesma luz, só que não era mais âmbar, né? Era uma luz azul, muito forte. Ela veio acompanhando a lateral, a margem do rio oposta onde nós estávamos. Ela veio acompanhando, e a gente vendo, olha ali. Olha lá, veio. Quando chegou na direção da ilha, ela entrou na direção de Belém. Mas estava muito baixo. Na altura das árvores, passando a copa das árvores. Mas uma luz muito grande, um troço enorme.
Essa foi a situação mais complicada, o caso mais extraordinário que o senhor viu dentro do projeto da Operação Prato?
Foi. Ela aproximou, ela entrou para o Belém, depois ela voltou na nossa direção. A gente estava vendo que tinha uma luz lá embaixo, através das árvores, a gente via que aquela luz tinha penetrado pela mata dentro. Mas ela voltava na nossa direção. Ela veio e ficou postada na nossa frente, na outra margem do rio.
Sabendo que vocês queriam.
Parou na nossa frente, e depois eu fui por curiosidade, depois por questão de exatidão do relatório, eu fui medir essa distância, 60 metros. Tá? Ele parou e ficou parado na nossa frente, aquele monstro, um sol azul. Era um brilho muito forte, mas que você podia encarar, você podia ficar fitando. Ela não te machucava a vista.
A janela?
Não via nada, só via aquela luz muito forte. So he's describing this craft that looks like a giant football that lands, and it's 320 feet tall. And he draws it. Oh, man, I wish I thought I had that in this clip. He described, so there's a drawing of it, and it's in here. Hang on. I think I've got it in my, here we go. Oh, here it is. Okay. So he describes this gigantic football-shaped craft that lands in front of them and kind of like rests on the ground. He says it's this enormous thing. It's glowing in blue light, and it's really bright, but you can look right at it and it doesn't burn your eyes. And it, in the picture, which I wish I could find, but I can't show it to you right this next second because I don't have it. But this is what it looks like. It looks just like this. And I saw the actual picture. It's this just sketched on a piece of paper. If someone just drew this and then just showed it to you, they were like, that's what it looked like. This is the poster. And so I another soft disclosure, I don't know. But little details like this seem to work their way into Hollywood movies, and I find that really interesting. I don't know where it comes from, but or how it works, but somehow stuff comes out and then you find it later and you're like, that's really weird. That's a weird little detail. Oh, and speaking of soft disclosure, did anybody see, I can't show it because YouTube dinged me for it last time, but I did a post today on YouTube about the flight of the Navigator um, being soft disclosure. I'm almost 100% sure. I have nothing to go on but my own gut instinct on this one. This is with most things on this channel, but I'm very confident that flight of the Navigator was a form of soft disclosure. And the thing that makes me say that is it was it David Fravor, who I think it was Fravor who first described the uh, I think it was gimbal. Was it gimbal or tic tac? It was gimbal that dropped down from 60,000 feet to about 50 feet or 100 feet above the ocean in about a second. And then it shoots straight back up and disappears. That exact thing is shown clearly in Flight of the Navigator in the clip that I posted on the YouTube channel. If you go to Night Shift and you look at our YouTube, I posted it in there as a link to all the spaceship scenes. It's like 30 seconds in. There's a scene where they're standing outside the hangar at NASA, and they're all like the crowd of people is out there, and you see the craft, and it's right there. It's the Trimaxian drone ship, and it takes off and it goes straight up in the air and disappears. And then in a later clip, it comes straight back down and it lands like it doesn't land. It just drops down from space and it stops like 2 feet off the ground and it just hovers there. And then it turns into it changes shape and morphs into a different shape and then takes off. Which when you're a kid and you're just watching Flight of the Navigator, it's like, that's one thing. But when you're an adult and you've spent 35 years reading about UFOs and you look at it again, you have to go, nobody was talking about any of those things until recently. Like that's all kind of new information. How was that stuff in this movie from 1981 or 82? Was it 82 or 81? Really weird. So anyway, Colares, what do you guys think? Is it, does it seem like some kind of a, I don't know, a research mission that was kind of looking at these people in this very localized area, or was this some kind of a UFO attack that was happening over a period of time, an extended period of time? Was something happening where these people were being targeted specifically? Holanda later goes on, and I wish I had this clip, but he shows an implant in his arm. He was actually visited in his home by beings. He said he was laying in bed. He felt a being come up behind him and like grab him and hold him. And this is the craziest clip of the whole thing. I can't believe I don't have it pulled for you to show you, but he talks about this experience and he says this being from behind tells him, it talks into his ear and in a robotic voice, like a speak and spell sort of robot from the 80s in Portuguese. It says to him, don't be afraid. We aren't here to hurt you. We're not going to hurt you. And it's a very interesting detail because when he says it sounded like a robot voice, and then he does an impression of the voice, and he's like, you know, he makes the robot voice. We, you know, of course, now we have it. We have, you know, Siri and Alexa and ChatGPT and all, you know, our AI voices are really good. They're indistinguishable from human voices. But this is 1977. 1977, the robot voices that anybody, if anybody heard a robot voice, it was on like Battlestar Galactica. It was like the Cylons or something walking around. So it just seems really interesting that if they're using some kind of like universal translator to speak audibly, he says he heard the voice speak into his ear, which is not the same as what we hear from a lot of other encounters we hear in most, like if you read Bud Hopkins or John Mack, any of the abduction books, people talk about hearing a voice in their mind. They get the telepathic communication. They hear the voice, but it's inside their head. It's not their voice, but it speaks in their language, and it's telling them XYZ. Hollanda describes hearing it in his ear, and it sounds like a robotic voice synthesizer through some kind of a translator in Portuguese, talking to him, telling him, calm down, don't freak out, you're not going to hurt you, you're going to be fine. His wife is sleeping in the bed. He's laying in the bed next to his wife. She stays asleep through the entire time. He feels this being grab him from behind, and he's like panicked. And he gets a look at this thing, and what he sees is a little humanoid about 5 feet tall with a gray, with a suit on, a soft sort of material suit, like a neoprene dive suit almost, but looser, he says. And he says he couldn't see the face. He couldn't see the details of the face. He could just see the body and he could see the being and he could feel it. And he said the clothing felt soft. It wasn't tight. It was kind of loose, but it was a smaller being. And then he hears this voice. So I don't know what I'm trying to articulate here. I guess I'm saying like the robot voice synthesizer thing is a clunky detail. It's a weird, clunky detail for super advanced aliens that have technology 1,000 years beyond us. It just seems kind of like clunky and stupid to have a robot sounding voice modulator thing. That sounds more like some really advanced DARPA stuff from 1977. Like our guys developed this in-house somewhere. Some people at AT&T or whatever came up with this, or IBM or who knows, whatever company developed some weird technology, and it was like 25 years advanced from, or 50 years ahead of where the state of the art at the time would be. But it doesn't sound like otherworldly beyond next generation technology. I don't know. Maybe it is. Just sounds like a weird detail to me. Let's check the chat. Let's see. This is crazy. They already said their morals are not like ours. Texas Instruments. Oh yeah, Texas Instruments. So he goes on in that description after this encounter happens. He says he's going to work he's going to the base where he's reporting in for duty. I think it's the very next day, or it's like a day after. And he's standing there and he's saluting the flag. And as he's saluting the flag, they're doing the morning routine. They're setting up everything. He's saluting the flag. His arm is itching. He's like, my arm is itching. And he describes this. He's like, my arm was so itchy. I was waiting for them to finish the music so I could put my arm down. But I wanted to scratch my arm, but I couldn't do it because I'm mid salute. So he's professional. He's standing there. He's saluting the flag. They finish the thing. And then he feels his arm and he notices he's got an implant in his arm. He's got a little implant. And he even shows it in the video. And I might actually be able to show you this. I think I've got this somewhere. But it doesn't look like much. It just looks like a little lump under the skin. But in that video, which I'll link to in the show notes if you want to go back and watch the full thing, it's like a grain of rice size implant right here, just like what you would expect a little RFID chip to be. And they say, so he gets grabbed by this being. It says in Portuguese, don't worry, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to hurt you. He kind of struggles with it, and then the encounter ends. It's kind of unclear how that ends. He goes back to sleep. He wakes up the next day. He goes to work. He notices there's something wrong with his arm. He looks at it, and he's got this implant in his arm. And the interviewer in that interview says, well, we should have that removed and analyzed. And then Holanda says, I'm not going to do that. It's already happened. It's there. I'm just going to leave it alone, which is also really interesting because if you woke up after having an encounter with a being in your bedroom and you woke up the next day and you go to work and you have an implant that wasn't there the day before, you can bet your ass I'm going down to the doctor's office. I'm going to go pick up some razor blades at the store. I'll go to Home Depot. I don't know. I'll go to the art supply store, get an X-Acto knife. I'm taking that shit out myself and I'm going to look at it. Like that is crazy to me that somebody would have an implant and be like, eh. But weirdly, again, strangled to death, unalived shortly after that interview. He was about to turn 70 in that interview, and then he was killed right afterwards. Who knows? Jessica Green in the chat says, it sounds clunky, air quotes on clunky, but it may just sound like that because that is the best way the experiencer can describe it, and they just have trouble describing it in a non-clunky manner. That's a great point. You make an excellent point. Maybe that's just the way that it's coming out. It just sort of lands that way. Could be mind's eye voice, like what's related to the person's, to the person best. Okay. Paris Diamond says, I worked at a company that made electrical contacts and circuitry boards for all these companies mentioned, and huge accounts for Texas Instruments, Oppenheimer, Northrop, and so on. There is a video showing now the latest Apple chip. I posted it to my Instagram the other day. By the way, I have an Instagram. You can find me on Instagram if you search my name. You can find me. I'm not very active on social media. Just I got burned out on Facebook, man. It was just so gross and toxic, and just the politics there was overwhelmingly bad, and I had to get out. But I have an Instagram, and I do occasionally post things there that I find interesting, or I'll repost a lot of stuff. There's a video that I posted the other day, and it was this uh, a zoom in on the latest Apple chip, the in-house chip that Apple puts inside their phones, and this thing is so dense. I think it's 3 nanometers is the current state of the art that's at least in consumer electronics. This fucking zoom was crazy. You just keep zooming in. It's like some kind of magic eye poster. You just keep going and keep going and keep going. And every time you think you're at the bottom of it, it just keeps zooming out like a fractal. It just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. There's so much power packed into these chips. It's insane. And I can't imagine what you could get an implant to do with these, like this level technology. We're so close to doing some really weird stuff. Imagine what an alien implant could do. Yeah, Facebook sucked. Marcus X Art says, how do you describe what you have no real example for? Holographic. Interesting. So this is not UFO related, but I'm going to show you some other stuff real quick, and then I gotta wrap it. But we talked about grays, we talked about drones, we talked about the Captain Olanda, his encounter. He says he was grabbed from behind. He looks at this thing. It's wearing a weird little jumpsuit, and it has a opaque mask over its face that looked like some kind of a mask. He couldn't make out the details of the face. So check this out. This is the last story I'm going to leave you with, and then we're going to end it for today. But where is it? There it is. We're going to pivot from UFOs just to something that's equally weird. This is Neo Beta Humanoid unveiled ahead of limited rollout to people's homes. I showed Chris Hovard this the other day, and he was like, "Holy shit!" So this is the Neo Beta Humanoid robot. This is not a person in a suit. This is an actual robot, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to show you the demo video of this thing. This is the I've talked a little bit about it on the channel recently. We're going to be talking more about it, but the rollout of home humanoid robotics is in full swing, and it's taking off at great breakneck speed in China, but it's happening everywhere. And this is one of the latest robots that's being designed for home use, and it's absolutely terrifying. Here's the video. Watch this. Let's just play that back one more time.
Yeah.
So first of all, if you're too lazy to pick up your own damn bag, you shouldn't have a robot. And secondly, what did you do with the bag? You just took it and put it down across the, like, I don't know what this demo is. But this is I don't know. This is really weird. It's really weird. So the Neo humanoid robot, this is it. And on a similar note, Humanoid robots tested at BMW Group Plant Spartanburg. This is from September 2nd. They're rolling these out in BMW factories. These are humanoid robots that are starting to go to work on the factory floor. And this is the Figure 2 robot. And you can see we're starting to get really, really good at this stuff. But these are terrifying. I don't know if I want one in my house. What do you think? Would you go for this? Let me know in the chat. That's it for today, gang. I've got no more time. I have to wrap it there. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being a part of the live stream. Thanks for hanging out with me for an hour and a half. Stay tuned. Stick with us. We're going to be rolling out some improvements over the next couple of weeks. Send an email to info@teamnightshift.com. Make sure you include your YouTube name and your Discord name if you want to be invited to the Discord server. Chris and Brett are going to be working on that. They're going to be make sure you're nice to them and stay cool, and then and they'll get you sorted out. So we're going to be making some changes to the live streams next week. There won't be one on Wednesday. There'll be one on Monday. There'll be one on Friday. And then going forward, we're going to be doing the live on Fridays, and it's just going to be a little bit more produced, a little bit more planned out. One last look at the chat. Thanks to everybody who made it out today. Check back with us and be sure to visit the website, teamnightshift.com. You can go there. You can check out the merch. You can get the cool Team Night Shift coffee mug. Get yours. And then when you sit down to hang out with us, you can pour yourself a nice, tasty beverage in there and pick up a shirt if you haven't already got one. Chameleon UK, thank you. Don't forget to hit that like button. Please, please do. And everyone, we're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. Right now, we're on the road to 20,000 subscribers, but we're the longer road, that the end of the road is 100K. We want to get to 100,000 subscribers. And I realize the bulk of that is on me to create more exciting and fun content. So I'm going to be devoting more of my time and energy to that. You can help me by sharing these videos, by liking them. If you go back and you find a cool one that you like from a few months ago or a few weeks ago, spread it around, put it out there. If put it on your social media, if you're on Reddit, you can share it there. The more people that find out about the channel, the more subscribers we get, and it just continues to grow. I think that's because we have a great community here. We have a lot of really cool people. The conversation is lively, it's respectful, it's entertaining. We start from a place of we believe in this, we believe this is real, this is really happening, we take it seriously. But from there, we try to have fun with it and speculate about what it could mean. What could this all mean? I'm not here to try and solve UFOs. I don't think any one of us is going to do that. But we're going to sit here and eat popcorn and watch this whole thing unfold over the next 5-10 years until contact happens. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I hope it does. Thanks for watching. If you're not already a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like and share the video. That's all I've got to say for now. Thanks for watching. Let's go to the logo. Let's listen to some music, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, keep looking up.